So when I realized that I could figure it out, then I realized I could dive headlong into this. And honestly, the more and more people I got to know, because I spent a lot of time getting to know people one on one who are in the industry, I realized that there's a lot of money you can make in real estate. And you can get as involved or as uninvolved as you want, and you can make money both ways. It just depends on how much work and time you want to put into it and how much money you want to make down the line.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Hey you, this is Christina Suter on Real Estate Breakthrough. I have Chris Collins with me, and yes, I'm excited because I wouldn't, my video editor gives me a hard time because I say that about every guest. But the truth is I am excited about every guest because they wouldn't be on my show if I wasn't excited about what they have to offer and who the heck they are. Because part of being successful in real estate is who you choose to be. What integrity do you bring to the game? What grit have you developed? What's your mastery in the level that you've chosen to master? And how do you take care of your investors and yourself in the process of being successful as a real estate investor? That is what helps to protect our cash, our capital, and our peace inside of a constantly shifting sea, which real estate is. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christina. Great to be here. I appreciate you. I love your energy and your enthusiasm. It's great.
You got to have it. After 35 years of investing, you can either be pissed off or you can be ready to find the pony in and among the shit. I'm just saying. You get one or the other. All right, bottom line, your history for my listeners. What is it that you're an expert in, and how the heck did you get there? Give me some history.
Man, well, I am a multifamily investor. I focus on investing in apartments, and I help investors who want to be co-owners in apartments, but they don't want all the hassles of being a landlord. So we partner up and buy apartments together. But it didn't start that way. I wasn't always a real estate investor. I wasn't born a real estate investor. I actually have a background in the Hollywood entertainment industry. I don't come from banking and finance and that whole world of suits and ties. I come from the world of music and television and creativity and artistry. And I have always kind of been that way. I was drawn to the creative side of life. So I went from college to Hollywood, and I've been a television editor, editing unscripted TV shows you might know, like America's Next Top Model, Duck Dynasty, Making the Band for MTV back in the day. I do Shark Week every year. I did Ancient Aliens. So a lot of different shows, all in the unscripted reality TV documentary world. And really the challenge with a job like that is you make enough money, like make a good salary, but it's not enough salary, right? It's a great salary to live a normal life, but it's not enough money to really go out and do something big with your life. So a lot of people in Hollywood get kind of stuck with what I call these golden handcuffs.
Yeah.
And you're working with a, $100,000 to $200,000 a year job, and you're just comfortable. But what I found was that this comfort, it was going to keep going forever, and I was never going to be able to get out of it, meaning I was never going to get to the next level of life where I wanted to be with my finances and my security for my family. So I just made a decision that I'm going to get into investment real estate and learn it from scratch. And I didn't know about mentors or coaching programs or anything like that. I just kind of made a decision and started working on it. So that's how I decided to go from TV to investment real estate. And it started as kind of a side hustle, a side income to add to my television income. And then finally last year, come tax time, was the first year where my real estate income took over my television income. And so now I focus a lot more on the real estate side of life.
Nice. So you've done the whole arc. Okay, dig deep for a moment. Tell me a little bit more about the moment when you got clear that real estate was going to be your pathway to breaking through to your financial freedom.
Well, I had been investing my money in the stock market. I don't buy a lot of things. I don't spend a lot of money. So it was a nice, for me, it was a natural, what do I do with the money that I have? I save money and I would always invest it in the stock market, and the stock market would go up and it'd go down and it would go up and then down again. And I never really knew what it was going to do that week or that month.
Yeah.
And I had this thought of, well, what happens if I want to retire someday and it's down,
Hmm.
right? And I need the money, but it's down and I feel terrible about taking money out. Or if it's up and I want to take some of that money out, but I'm like, is it bad because it should keep going up?
Right.
And I didn't like that thought for my future. So we got pregnant with my son. This is 2014. And I thought, like, I have to have other streams of income, other forms of income that I can count on. Because I knew other TV editors who were in their 50s and even 60s. And we would talk about retirement. And I'd go, what are you doing for retirement? And they say something word for word. Yeah, Chris, I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
I thought in my head, when are you planning to do that? What is the,
When is
but
the
it goes back to that comfort I was talking about, right? If you get paid enough, it's enough to just live your life comfortably and get your, eat out, eat food out, eat sushi once in a while, do one trip a
yeah.
year,
Yeah.
but it doesn't leave enough to really have a freedom in the future. So I decided I'm going to get into real estate because I saw these streams of income. I saw rents coming in every month. And I realized that real estate's not all that complicated. So for me, like I said, coming from, I don't have the finance background. I don't come from banking and all that side. I'm like, I understand this. It's just rents coming in, expenses going out, and then there's profit at the end of the day. So when I realized that I could figure it out, then I realized I could dive headlong into this. And honestly, the more and more people I got to know, because I spent a lot of time getting to know people one on one who are in the industry, I realized that there's a lot of money you can make in real estate, and you can get as involved or as uninvolved as you want, and you can make money both ways. It just depends on how much work and time you want to put into it and how much money you want to make down the line.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about either your nature, your talent, or your skill that's helped you from your previous industry to be successful in this industry. Either their talent or the skill that you use in this industry,
That's a
in that
good
industry.
question. So I'll tell you a story. When I was
Please,
in college, we'll
go
take
for
it
it.
way back. I was in college. I was in San Diego, and the entertainment industry was in LA. And I knew I wanted to work in LA, but I'm in San Diego. San Diego is not known to be a entertainment type of town. There's not TV
No,
stations and all this
no.
infrastructure
The
for that.
studios are not in San
Uh,
Diego. Nope.
they're not in San Diego. So I made a connection in LA and decided I'm going to go and work for free in LA three
Hmm.
days a week.
Okay.
So I would drive from San Diego up to LA. I would intern at a production company. I would crash on people's couches. I would find anyone I knew that could point me to someone that I could crash on their couch. So often I was staying on strangers' couches for
Okay.
3 days in a row, and then I'd work for free and then drive back to San Diego and do my schoolwork. And I did that, and I did that, and I did that over and over and over. So when I graduated college, I moved to LA and had a job the next day because I had built this relationship. And then within 6 months, 6 months, a little bit, 8 months maybe, I was editing, which typically takes years to
Right.
become, to kind of climb the ladder to become an editor. So what I had was this unending grit, this hard work, this I make a decision, I'm going to make it happen.
Okay.
So then fast forward to getting involved in real estate. I had a similar decision. I'm going to get into real estate. So I started with getting to know people. So I was still working in TV. I had to go and drive into a job. So I decided I'm going to cut out free time altogether and I'm going to dedicate every moment that I'm not working or with my wife to real estate. So on the drive into work, I'd either leave early at 6 and meet someone for coffee and develop a relationship and ask
Hmm.
questions, or I'd be listening to a podcast, or I'd get on a phone call. Then I'd work, and then lunchtime, same thing. I cut out lunches with buddies at work. That was no longer a thing for me. We're not going to just hang out and get lunch and chat about nothing. I would either have a meeting or I'd skip lunch with friends and I'd be on phone calls or I'd listen to a podcast or I'd read. So
Hmm.
you'd find me, everyone else would go out to lunch and get their salads, and I'd be sitting there highlighting books and just reading. And then after work, same thing. I'd either go to a meetup event like what you would host, or I would go and I would listen to a podcast, or I'd read an audiobook on the way home. Then I'd get home, dinner with my wife, and then it would be back to studying in the books. So it's a decision that I'm willing to put in the effort into. And it's one thing I've seen with real estate, because real estate does not come easily. I've found it's not someone just hands it to you. You have to do a lot of work. And I don't think people are ready for that. I think people
Yeah.
think, I'm going to just buy a house and get into investment real estate. And I'm like, that works once or twice. But if you want to have a career and a business,
Yes.
you have to put in a lot more work. So that grit, the determination, and the willingness to put in that extra work, that's what I've carried over into real estate. And it's something I use every day now, whether it's learning about something or going out and doing due diligence on a property, or getting in a plane, on a red eye, flying to Florida, checking out properties, flying back to be here for my son the next day. So
I do that
hard
too.
work.
I do that too. I get on the Med Eye at 10:30 at night to fly to Indianapolis to look at properties to be back on the 4 o'clock flight back to LA, so I can kiss my daughter goodnight again in LA. So I'm missing
Right?
only 24 hours of her life, but I'm getting a lot of stuff done in that 24 hours, right?
And you're willing to put in the work. Like, you are someone I've known as, you show up to do work. You don't show up just to chit chat,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you make it feel very friendly and warm. So I don't know how you do that at the same time. Because when I'm in business mode, my wife can tell. She'll look at me. She goes, "Oh, you have stuff going on,
There's
right?"
stuff going
I'm
on,
like,
yeah.
"Yeah," because I'm very focused.
Well, I'm glad that I come across that way. You also happen to generally meet me in social situations. Whereas when I'm
Sure.
walking through the kitchen, my husband's going, "Are you mad or are you working on something?" I'm like, "I'm working on something. Don't get in the middle." He's like, "Okay, okay, fine. I'll just go right on by, honey." Like,
Yeah, sure.
all right. So now we talked a little bit about what's the secret sauce of Chris. What's the secret sauce in your company that makes your company really excel in that particular area? I know lots of companies do this structure: buy
Mhm.
multifamilies, value add, get money back to their investors. Cool. But what is it that your company is your particular secret sauce?
So my company is an extension of me, and what our company does
Yes.
is
Yes.
we have, I call it collaborations, right? Like, you see the Louis Vuitton partner up with Supreme and they do collabs, or
Yeah.
Adidas will partner up with purse companies and they'll do stuff. So those are collabs in the fashion world. Well, what I do is collabs with different partners across the country, because we don't buy properties in California. We buy properties in Texas, Florida, Arizona, Iowa, Tennessee, red states across the country. But I'm smart enough to know that I cannot run a property in Texas as well as someone who lives in Texas.
Right.
So a lot of people, what they do is they find someone on the internet and they invest with them.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I've been building out relationships for years at this point, and flying out to these markets for years and developing relationships. And my wife knows these people that I know. And so what I have is a pretty strong network of professionals in our industry who do this just as much as I do at a high level, but they're in their market. So when we go to buy a property in Texas, I have my partners in Dallas, and I have different partners in San Antonio, and I have different partners in Iowa. So that relationship that's been built out over the years, it's not a new thing. It's not something I'm just meeting them now and trying to figure it out. So that's a really strong thing we have going for us. Another thing is transparency and investor relations.
Mm-hmm.
When my investors come and talk to me, they know that I'm going to give them a candid answer and a real answer to their question, mainly because when I started this business, it was to help me and my family. And it extended out to then helping investors get involved as well. But they know that every property we buy, I'm putting my own money in as much or more than every investor is. So they know that I'm looking at it first as an investment for me and my family. And then if they're going to come along, they know that, look, Chris has his full weight behind this,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows that his son and daughter and wife, our money is all involved in this property as well. And then they know that, over the years I've honed this, is when you talk to me and we go over a business plan of how to buy apartments or how to buy this specific apartment complex, I tend to boil things down to a very understandable, plain English manner. I think a lot of times, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, you get in a conversation with somebody and after 3 minutes you go, I have no idea what this person's talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
very overwhelmed,
Yeah.
and I feel stupid, and I don't want to feel stupid, but I know that I should be getting, why am I not understanding this? So I talk a lot. I use Zoom a lot. I use whiteboard. We do a lot of whiteboard sessions. And it's just, you're going to get an understanding of the business plan, not in a dumbed down way, but just a way that's understandable. And I think it's really important because we deal with so much money. These investments are not cheap. It's a lot of your hard earned money, a lot of your family's money. So if you want to have a good understanding of the situation and what the business is going to be, that's one thing that we pride ourselves on at Amity Cashflow.
I love it. I love it. And it is so important. Transparency is so important. If you're a passive investor, because primarily these days I'm a passive investor and not an active
Mm-hmm.
investor. If you're a passive investor, your integrity, your transparency, your willingness to have yourself on the line, and your grit, right? The word of the day, your grit is what defines the success of the deal. Once I hand you my $100,000, it's like I always say, it's like you hand your Ferrari over to the valet. That you want to trust that that valet knows what they're going to do with your car, and they're going to bring it back whole and complete without dings in it, and they're going to know where to park it, and they're going to know how to drive it, and that they're going to be good with it. And so if I'm giving you $100,000 of my money, I'm counting on your driving record. I'm counting on your investment in that. Your investment in wanting to make my investment work. I had to take a moment to break those two words down. But your investment to make my investment to work, and that the transparency is the only way I can do that. The transparency is the closest I can get to understanding your driving record. It's the closest I
Right.
can
And
get.
asking a lot of questions. I don't know. I have investors tell me all the time. They're like, "Oh, sorry, I'm asking so many questions." And I tell them, I'm like, "Do you realize how much money you're talking about? Like, if anyone ever looks at you and says, okay, that's enough questions for now, it's probably not the right person to partner up with, because this is really a partnership for multiple years with millions of dollars on the line. And for you, it might be $100,000. For someone else, it might be 50. For someone else, it might be 500. But there's never an instance where it's a little amount of money, right? A small amount of money. So what I tell investors is ask as many questions as you want. Maybe the best way to do it is prioritize questions by deal breaker, make or break
Yeah.
questions, and then education questions. Like, hey, Chris, these I need to know before I make this investment. I have other questions that I'd love to learn along the way, but we can kind of get to those. That way we can be efficient with their time. But at the end of the day, if you have questions unanswered, it might not be the best investment for you.
Yeah, it's so important. And it's because in the questions, and you know this, Chris, because you've had people ask these questions, but as a passive investor, I'm listening for your answer, and I'm listening for how you answer.
Mm,
I'm listening for both. Because what I want to hear is, yes, we have blah, 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 blah as the plan. I want to hear you have a plan.
sure.
Right? I want to hear, and you may have told me the whole plan in the marketing material. I want to hear you describe to me your version of the plan, because somebody else wrote the marketing material, but you're the one I'm handing the money to. So I need to know your understanding of the plan and your sense behind what it's going to take to implement that plan. Oh, and by the way, I know there's already a plan there that's probably going to work, but I need to hear you tell me. So does that make
Sure.
sense? Like, I mean, I'm looking at
Absolutely.
both. I'm looking at, like when you tell me you can, you can fly from one city to another city in a 24-hour period, I go, yes, my kind of dude, right? Like, yes, that's
Right.
what I do. That's what I expect you to do.
And really, it is, there's the business side of this for sure, but there's the relationship and partnership side of this
Yeah.
as well. This is someone you're going to be working with for 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, maybe even longer if you're doing multiple investments. So you want to get to know these people. I mean, I fly across country just to hang out with people, just to kind of get to know them. And I bring my wife, hey, let's just have lunch and dinner with these people for a day or two. That's different than just something you saw on social media. I people find, a lot of people find me on social media, or they see my content out there, but my encouragement is, okay, now let's get on a phone call, let's get on a Zoom. I always encourage Zoom calls so you can see face to face
Yeah.
as much as possible. I want to get in the room with them and have lunch, because it goes both ways, right? As a
Yes, it
operator, for
does.
me, I'm looking for investors that we click and we work well together,
Mm-hmm.
and they should be looking for someone that they trust and that they work well with.
Yeah.
So it's a relationship business, and a lot of that does come in just meeting people and getting to know, man, when I talk to that guy, he seems so smart, right?
Right.
And that's what you want to have. If you have someone that you're not comfortable with, look, there are other people to invest with. It's a lot of money on the line, so be comfortable with who you invest with.
I love your description, and I have to agree with almost everything that you said. One is you have to deal with the investors and their personalities, so you want to know who they are. Let's be transparent about that, right? Let's be honest
Mhm.
about that. And there's so many deals out there that if for whatever reason the synergy doesn't click, you really don't have to go there. Like you just kind of don't have to. Right?
Yeah.
There are too many. 80% of the world's wealth is in real estate. I can't tell you how profound that is a statement that is to me of being able to say it's truly abundant. Like there are lots of syndicators. There's lots of different types of real estate. There's lots of ways to play. There are lots of ways to get a return to hit your 8% preferred return or 7% preferred return and 12 to 14% total return at the end of the day. There are so many ways to get to that number. There is no reason to squeeze oneself into this situation where you're going to be chronically unhappy with what you're dealing with, both as a
Right.
syndicator and as an investor.
Right. And then the beauty though, as being a syndicator, which is I found really nice, is the people, a lot of people I talk to, they don't have this long list of people to invest with. They don't have this huge network that they can pick and choose from. But what I get to give them is opportunities to invest in these private market offerings. They're these deals that we get into, these deals you see behind me. They're not on Wall Street. They're not on Zillow. They're not on Redfin. No one else can get into these deals except if you know the few of us who are buying this deal as a partnership. So
Mhm.
you really get access to things you wouldn't be able to if you don't go out and meet people and find partners.
Well said. All right. So, right now, what is your industry facing? And then I'm going to ask, how's your company preparing for it? So, right now, what do you feel like the multifamily industry is facing?
Interest rates. This is not a new
I know.
story
It's sometimes
necessarily.
that's a
I'm sure
simple
you've
question,
heard
but
it.
right now it's not. I apologize. Okay, interest rates, go
No,
ahead.
no. The main thing, the two main things that I see are interest rates are high, deal volume is low because of that. Because just so the way that these deals typically work, and I'm probably repeating for a lot of your listeners, but if you're learning, this is going to be helpful. So the way that an apartment complex typically sells is a broker will reach out to the owner and say, hey, can I come out and tour your property with you, give you a BOV, broker opinion of value. And from there, we can talk about if that's a good price you would be interested in. And then they can go out to market and sell it to people like me who are maybe going to buy it. Well, this year, BOVs alone, the broker opinion of values, just those meetings to even get a listing are down by 80%.
Okay.
So from there, the transactions that actually go to market and sell and buy and trade are down, right? So just the transaction volume alone this past year has been incredibly decreased. So that means there's less opportunity to invest and to get into new deals. And it means that the people selling deals are more hesitant because interest rates are so high. So as a buyer, I can't offer as much money for that property because my money costs me more to get that capital from a bank. So as the seller, they have the option of, well, I sell my property at not as much as I'd like to, because 2 years ago, everyone was telling you your property is worth 25 million.
Yeah.
This year it might be worth 18,
Yeah.
19. Do you want to
Yes.
take that?
Yeah.
So a lot of people are just holding on to their properties. But what's happening and where the opportunities are right now, I see is when you have sellers who get into a little bit of distress. Maybe their loan is coming due. Maybe they have a rate cap that's expiring and they can't afford to buy a new one. So they got to get this property sold to just either wash and kind of come clean and look, we don't want to put any more money into it.
Mhm.
Or maybe they just take a little bit lower return for their investors that they were looking for, but at least they're not holding on to a bad deal anymore. So then as buyers, you can come into these deals that are maybe off market, maybe some creative financing, like you're getting some seller financing, or you're getting a local bank to help you out, or you're getting some preferred equity. But there's different ways you can buy these deals than the traditional way of a broker brings a deal to the table. So interest rates are really being a big factor in the transactions of real estate. And then the other thing is rents. We've seen rents rise at an astronomical rate in the last 3 years, but let's say 5 years, right? I feel like, and what I tell people all the time is in the last 1 to 3 years, we've built in like 10 to 15 years of rent increases in a very short timeline. So today, rents are not jumping up as much as they have
Mhm.
been. That's because it has been abnormal. It's not normal what we've been seeing. So you can't underwrite to that. You have to assume normal rent growth or even stagnant or flat rent
Yeah.
for another year or two at least.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing today. I might have jumped into your next question as well, but those are the two main things that are, hiccups right now.
Okay. And so now I'm going to ask a side question just because I love data and I love people who are in the industry. And this is one of the best ways I can get, blood on the street or news from the street. Um, how long do you think it's going to take before those sellers in general are willing to accept the new price point? Because now we have to take a distressed seller in order to get them to be willing to accept it. But at some point, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, last year this building was only worth 18 million. I'm lucky it's worth 18 now. I'll take 18. Like how long is that gonna take?
That's a great question. I mean, look, uh, I'll speak from our experience, right? We had a property that we bought for 20, was listed last year for 40, had a buyer backed out. So the values are there. But then this year it's not worth that same 40. So what do? Well, we look at our loan. So we go to our loan and we go, how much longer could we hold this? We could hold this property for another 5, 7 years if we
Okay.
wanted to.
Right.
So we'll just ride it out. So for me as a seller, as long as I communicate with our investors, hey, we talked about selling this property last year. We're going to just hold it in cash flow. Everyone okay with that? Great. That's what we're going to do because we don't want to take a lower return. So I can't speak to really what everyone's out there is doing and
That's okay.
how long that's going to be because I think the wise investor will look at your loan and hold the property and wait for the market to come up because this is cyclical, right?
Yeah,
Things
it
go
is
down, things come up.
completely.
So if you can ride it out, look, all of us own real estate because we enjoy the cash flow, the tax benefits, we enjoy owning real property. Those things all continue as long as you can afford to. So when sellers are going to take lower returns, I don't know that many sellers are going to just get sick of holding a property and just sell it because why not? I'm sick of seeing these $18 million offers. I think they'll probably hold it and keep cash flowing. But if you're negative cash flow, if your money is running out, if you're coming up against a rate cap, if your loan's coming due, all of these things are pushing sales. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen it in the last year personally in our deals.
Yeah.
So um,
So
I
what
think
do
the
you mean is the loan?
relationship side of it, yeah, I think the
Is the
loans are a
loan
big
is the
part. I
loan
think
resetting or the cap resetting on the loan that generally forces it to sale? Yeah.
that's what I've seen personally. That's where we've seen deals work. And then I think it really comes down to your relationships, right? If you're a broker and you have the whole of that deal, a lot of people are going to want that deal today. So you better have a strong relationship with a broker,
Yeah.
or you better start getting to know some owners of properties so you can get off market deals and not even go through brokers. So we've had some success there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's true. That's truthful on both sides of the cycle. Being able to have direct relationships to owners, knowing your farming area, knowing who your brokers are that specialize in that farming area. I mean, it's just when you're dealing with, since 2011 and 12, when multifamily was the first to recover, all the
Mhm.
way through until seemingly today, even in this rougher market, having that direct relationship is probably one of the few ways that you can really get a hold of a deal in that 50, 100 unit plus range. All
Mhm.
right, next question. How will your company manage this upcoming potential recession?
Well, it kind of, to me, I don't know, I kind of talked about it already, but watching our loans really closely,
You did? Okay.
communicating with investors and letting them know deals we're buying, we're putting lower projected returns than previous years. Even when we see higher returns, we're tapering it down just on paper. Like,
Yes.
let's just not
Yes.
project these high
Yes.
returns. We are watching our rents extremely closely. We're paying attention really to our resident retention and what are we doing with people who already live on our property, right? We don't want them going anywhere because one of the highest costs is turnover. So, but at the same time, what we've seen, it's been interesting. Rents have kind of stagnated a lot in a lot of markets in America, and some of our properties, incoming rents, so new residents that are coming in, we're not maybe continuing to raise those rents. Those
Mhm.
are kind of staying. But our residents who are renewing, that's where we're seeing increase in rents.
Oh,
So
okay.
that just goes to show you that you have to have strong property management and relationships on site, on your property. It can't just be looking at this global scale of what is real estate doing. You got to pay attention to your properties. And so I think it's also, like I said, communicating with our investors and letting them know where we are with our loan, where our rents are, what kind of rents are we collecting. And I mean, it's one thing that I get a lot of praise from investors on our deals is really clean, clear, over the top as much as possible communication on a monthly basis about the properties you're invested in. So you really have an idea of what's going on site. So I feel like I'm
Great.
kind of
No, no, it's
meandering
great.
around
No,
there,
I love
but
that. Well, I love your description because it has to do with maintaining what you have, but also being able to purchase into new and being able to project it well, right? Being able to say, no, no, we're going to use minimal expectations on what rental increases. Maybe rents will be stagnant. We're understanding what our loan is. We understand what we're capable of offering based on the loan terms that we're able to get, and being appropriate, you being appropriate to what the market is currently moving forward versus the seller who may or may not be there yet.
right. And I think the other thing that I look for specifically in properties is a lot of times people want to buy properties and continue to push rents, right? This market's going to keep going up.
Yeah.
I'd rather buy a property where the rents are trailing the market, they're below,
Mm-hmm.
and let's just try to get it to market and
Mm-hmm.
let that be enough. And if that's enough for the return, great, goodbye,
All the
because you already
better.
see it's already hitting that. Even though these rents, I'm using my hands, so if you're listening, you're not seeing it, but
It's
if
true.
current rents in the
True.
market, if if current rents in the market continue to rise, we'll
Mm-hmm.
let those rise, and that can be organic, and maybe we get a piece of that. But let's just project to get where rents are today,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be our returns for our investors. So then we get upside if we get it, but if we don't, then we're just simply hitting what market is already doing today.
Perfect. All right. Tell me about a deal that went right inside of your company or your investment history, and how did you set it up for success?
Ooh, a deal that went right.
A deal that went right. Don't worry, I'm going to ask about a deal that
All
went
the
wrong too, but we're going to start with the deal that went right first.
sure. All the deals go right. Real estate's magical, right?
Yeah, right. Mhm. And by the
I
way, anybody
know.
who's not watching, you can see the joke on his face. I'm just saying.
It's one of the things I spend a lot of time talking with my investors about risk.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, if we don't cover it in a phone call, I send them a video and I send them a breakdown of here's all the risks involved. So if you're listening, know that real estate comes with risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's by definition,
Yes.
investing means risk. So when I talk about things that went right, there's a potential for things to go wrong as well. So we had a portfolio in Florida that we doubled our investors' money in 30 months. It was a little bit, actually a little bit higher than that, but we had projected that in 4 years, but we accelerated it for a couple different reasons. One is we do really intense due diligence when we buy properties. So I go out, I walk every property myself, I talk with other property managers, I look at their units, I see what the potential is for what we can do on our property, as well as what's above and beyond our property. We will never get to these rents, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
because these properties down the street, they have garages and they have river frontage. We'll never hit those rents. So where can we live? So we took a property and we were able to hit above our projected rents, partially because of the market, but partially because I saw what we were doing on the other properties around, and we went and did above and beyond that. So we moved walls in our units, we added
Nice.
walk-in closets, we made a community that was above what was being offered around there, and then our rents kept on going up. So a little bit of seeing what's in the market and trying to exceed that, a little bit of timing the market. We sold these properties at a great time before everything started dropping
Yeah.
down. So at cap rates in Florida that are now, I don't know, 40, 50% higher than what we sold ours at. So timing the market and seeing it's a good time to sell. So that was a success because investors got to invest their capital, watch a business plan unfold. There were certainly challenges. This was through COVID, mind you. We
Right.
saw the fear of what's going to happen. Are people going to pay their rent? We got to see. I tell this story all the time where you know the government handed out money to the nation. Right, here's free money. It's COVID, but what we got was a new line item on our T12 of future rents collected. What is that? What is this? Well, everyone took their money from the government and they gave it to us, the owners, to pay their rent in advance so they know that their housing is secured. It's one of the best theses I've ever seen about why owning multifamily is a necessary asset. It's one of my whole investment theses. Owning necessary assets, meaning where's the money going to go first from our residents? And it goes to
Nice.
rent, and it goes to food, clothing, etc. But anyway, so long story short, we accelerated our timeline. We returned investors' money, doubled it in about 30 months, and really paid attention to the market. And now you're going to ask me about challenges. So let's
That's
talk about
right. So
that
next
too.
is tell me about a deal that went wrong. How did you fix it? And what did you learn? Because we all learn when something goes wrong, right? That is the prime learning line of life, is not when things go right, but when things go wrong.
I agree completely. And I tell my son that all the time. It's like, it's great to celebrate your successes, but celebrating your challenges and celebrating some failures along the way is when you're going to learn. And that's what sticks in your head, right?
Yeah, it is what sticks in your
So,
head. Yeah.
yeah, I'll give you two quick examples.
Great.
One, we have properties in San Antonio in Texas. And 2 years ago, there was this great freeze that fell across Texas. It was
Yeah.
unheard of. And we
Okay.
had pipes freezing over and bursting into units, which doesn't
Wow.
happen
Yeah,
in
that doesn't
Texas.
happen
This
in
is a
Texas.
this is a
No.
Midwest issue, right? This
That's
happens in Iowa.
Indianapolis. That's where I invest.
But in Indianapolis, your pipes are wrapped and you're
They're
running water
prepared
through them.
for it.
They're prepared for it. They're underground, right? There's all these things in place because that's what happens there. In Texas, we don't have that, right? Texas, we have shifting sands and unstable floor,
You do.
foundations.
Unstable,
That's part of Texas.
soaking wet subfloors and shifting sands. And yes, that is correct.
Very different.
Very different.
So we had pipes burst, and it's all the operators, all the people who own properties look around like, are you guys having this? Are you having this? Okay, this is not normal, but it's something we're all dealing with. So to me, it was a great example of how good is your property management. Can you guys go in and handle that? So we had our pipes burst and fixed within a week. Other people were down for multiple weeks because they weren't quite prepared or their property management was spread too thin.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
put full-time property management on site, and we have good maintenance crews who are ready to go to work right away. They're not spread too thin. So it's a testimony of, can you what's the word, like, mobilize your property management to deal with a problem
Mhm.
rather than the normal, right? The normal is it's what's expected. That's what you see. Okay, hey, we have a leaky faucet here. Hey, our plumbing's backed up in this toilet, right? Those are normal things you deal with. But I think you're going to find out the salt of your management when you have an issue like this happen, or if you have a drunk driver run into one of your units and on a corner unit off the street, and that one's going to be down. You got to fix that quickly because it's not only just the income, but it's an eyesore for the property, and that looks bad.
Yeah.
So being able to mobilize quickly. On that same note, really, for mobilize quickly, we had our property manager in our Florida portfolio quit, and so that left a vacancy. And property management, huge issue, right? You have to have a good property manager on site. But we got to see the economies of scale really play out there because we took a property manager from a sister property that we had that was
Okay.
about 2 miles away. Let's go, hey, look, for now, we need you to split your time 50-50, this property, this property. It leaves them both short staffed for a moment, but they do have oversight on them. So being able to mobilize and be quick in your decision making and having a resource on the ground that you've set up and trust to be at both
Yeah.
properties, it really saved us there while we found a new property manager. But if that was our only property in the market or we didn't have anyone on staff, we'd just be out and we'd be scrambling to find someone and put someone in that maybe isn't the best fit. They're just someone available quickly, which, as you know, is not really who you want. You don't want the person who's available right now necessarily. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're
challenges.
rarely the best if they're, because
Yeah,
it's
challenges come
investment money.
all. There are always challenges. It never ends. I mean,
Yes.
there's contractors who don't show up, contractor teams that don't show
Okay,
up,
how do you deal with
lenders that don't.
contractors? That is a chronic problem inside of real estate, both in single family residential, multifamily residential. I mean, I mean, it's in multiples. How do you deal
Yeah.
with contractors? Totally off the script. Tell me.
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we've done is we put multiple teams on site at the same time.
Okay.
Hey, you bring your team, you're going to be doing these units. You bring your team, you're going to be doing these units. You bring your team, you're going to be doing the roof. And then you see how they work because
Okay.
they see other guys working, they see other people working. Oh man, why are they okay? Well, so either they're going to show up and I'm going to say show up and show out, which is a term, but they're going to show that their work stands above, or they're going to get intimidated and not do great work. But you have multiple people going, so that way you can go, look, these guys aren't working as well. Let's let these two guys work well. But you're not wasting time. It does take a lot of money in capex up front, so
Yeah.
let's just put that out there. You can't do this if you're just getting by on your property. It's harder to do that.
Right.
But when you're early on in the process, maybe you have a lot of your money raised from investors up front to take care of capital expenditures or renovations, then yeah, put a couple people up front. Don't spend all your time on one contracting team and wait 3, 4, 6 months to find out that they haven't been providing what they said they were going to. But if you find out quickly within the first 2 months, then you can really fly because you saw them stand out in the
Yeah.
face of adversity, I guess I would say. But knowing that, hey, look, we need you to do well. Here's where you put a little pressure on them. They see it and they feel it.
All right. So put a little pressure on them, right? Don't wait 6 months to work out where they're lagging. Wait only 2, and have a little friendly competition going between, like, yeah, no, you're not the only contractor on site. If you don't do well, I do have somebody else I can move right in. So a
I mean,
little,
the other thing really is, and we didn't talk about, is
yeah.
local oversight, right? Like I was saying,
Oh,
my
good.
partners are in the market,
Hmm.
being able to walk the units quickly with them and not waiting for the end of the month or the end of the 2 week period. Walk the units. Hey, you just finished unit 12. I'll be right over there. Let's walk it. Oh, you're going to come right. Yeah, I'm coming right
Yeah,
now.
I'm
Let's
coming
go
right
look at the
now. You
cabinets.
said it was
How the
done.
paint? You said, so let's look at the paint. Wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of drips on all these cabinets.
Yeah.
Why are there drips on the cabinets?
Yeah.
Oh, you just kind of painted in along the electrical outlet. That is some shoddy work. Okay. Okay, well, now you get one more week to see if you're going to fix those things or not. But right away versus some of the outer state owners that you got to wait till the end of the month to find out. You're looking at pictures to see how it
Yeah.
turns out. It's not the best way to deal. These are multi-million-dollar properties. It's not something you want to just figure out as you go. You got to have it, dialed in quickly.
I love the accountability, and since the only direct ownerships I do now are single family doors. I'm the
Mhm.
one who's like, yeah, I'll be there September 20th. Like, literally, I'm going to be at a property I've purchased. The team has done their painting, they've done their prep work, the Airbnb, and now I'm going to go look at it. They're pouring concrete today, literally,
Okay.
and I'm going to go look at it all on the 20th, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, but then my designer's gone. She's moved on to her next project. If I don't like what she's done, I'm going to have to pull her back to get her focus for a small dollar amount.
Mm.
Oh, right. But the accountability immediately, then they're like, oh, the job isn't done. Okay, well, let me stay here. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last question. What does financial freedom mean to you? We're all using real estate to break through to our financial freedom. What's that vision in your head of what it means to you?
Man, this has become so real in the last 8 months. If you follow the Hollywood entertainment industry at all, the entire city's on strike.
Yes.
There's very little work. I talk to investors every day. Some of them have not been working for 6 months. Some of them haven't been working for 3 months. I have a lot of investors who aren't in the industry, so they're oblivious to that, right? But the people who are, that was what I was trying to figure out and solve that problem
Yeah.
is I don't want to depend on work that may or may not be there to pay my bills. So what I did is I created a moat of safety around my castle, so to speak, right? My family and my son and daughter and my wife, we are secure with income that comes in from multiple properties across the country, thousands of residents that are paying rent every month. And then if I want to go work some television shows, let's do that as well. But it's simply adding to it. It's not the main foundation anymore. So to me, financial freedom isn't sitting on a beach somewhere because I cannot. I enjoy sitting on the beach for 2 to 3 weeks. I like to work too much. Maybe it's a sick. I don't know. I'm not a workaholic.
No,
I'm
no,
not a
no, no, no.
workaholic. I'm
I have
not a
the exact same
workaholic.
problem. I
But
just I just went on a 2 week vacation to Europe with my family, and I'm all like, okay, I'm ready to get back to my exciting life in LA. Okay, I'm ready to get back to my interviews. I'm ready to get back to my. I'm like, I love what I'm doing. So
I think that's great, right? It's not a workaholic. You just love what you're doing. My wife sometimes she's like, bring your laptop for the first few days so you can like ease into vacation. I'm like, okay, cool. But look, I'm not the person who's going to go sit on the beach. I like to
right,
work too much. So what financial freedom has been for me is the ability to choose what work I'm doing and not be dependent on what's given, what's offered. Hey, you have to do this. Okay, man, I got to make that money. And then it's really giving me, like I said, that moat in the face of where Hollywood has, stopped paying a lot of people. They're just not working. I'm not worried so much about that because I have all this real estate helping me out. So financial freedom is really a sense of security, not just for me, but for my family. And then the ability to choose what work I want to do.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much. I so appreciate that amazing knowledge, grounded, straightforward, authentic advice on contractors, because I have that problem myself, as well as how to deal with multifamily. If people want to invest in one of your projects, they want to get a hold of you, they want you to come speak, how do people get a hold of you, Chris?
I'm pretty easy to find. You can go to my website, amitycashflow.com. A-M is in Mary, I-T-Y, amitycashflow.com. If you go to the contact page there, you can book a phone call with me. And other than that, I'm on social media at Amity Chris Collins. You can find me on pretty much every social media platform. I spend
Mhm.
most of my days, if I'm not out on a property or talking with my partners, I'm talking with new investors, people who are looking to invest in real estate, but they don't want the hassle of being a landlord. So I deal with a lot of people who want to be passive owners and just create passive income. We're working on property number 20 right now. So pretty proud of
Nice.
that. It's been a good career here and only going up from here.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, how many full cycles do you have? If you're on property 20 right now, how many full cycles do you
Yeah,
guys have?
10 at this point.
10. Nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations. All right.
thanks.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Wonderful having you at the show. You can find real estate. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. You can find me on all different kinds of platforms: iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, as well as the video on YouTube, Roku TV, Amazon TV, and Apple. Thank you so much, guys. Tune in again in 2 weeks.